Welcome to the Legends Tour. Hugh and myself, Peter Martin, are on the road again. I don't know about you, Hugh, but I thoroughly enjoyed part one of the Legends Tour because quite simply we got to see Bill Shankly's monument out in the Glenbuck area, beautiful, and then of course across to Bobby Lennox at Saltcoats. I thought we were going to do a whistle stop round about 9 or 10, but we had to spend a wee bit of time, a wee bit of chat on the road, and of course a wee bit of time at the statue and the monument.
And a wee bit of explanation as well, maybe to some of the people who just know the likes of Bobby Lennox and Bill Shankly by name. We actually know them by, with them by association through our work. So just to explain fully what their significance is in Scotland, why people wanted to make memorials to them, in their careers and their significance to the clubs.
Well, one of the guys that we're going to pay tribute to today, Hugh, has actually got two statues of himself out and about. It's probably one of the greatest Scottish legends for one half of the Old Firm, and we're going to visit another great Scottish legend. I would suggest to you the greatest for the other half of the Old Firm. So it's going to be a really good day today, and then we're going to cut across a genius. I think it's fair to say by the time we go and visit his statue, we're going to cut across someone who scored in 2 European Cup finals as well, and we're also going to cut across and chat about a statue of a man that both of you and me and many others in our game had the great fortune to watch how he operated, saw him at close quarters as a coach, and then going on to become a legendary manager. Sadly, all of these people that we'll be going to see today are no longer with us, but then again, one or two of them actually did get to see the statues being put up, which is always nice, isn't it?
Absolutely.
In fact, I think one of them is still with us, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, one will still be with us. The rest have gone on to their eternal reward, as they say. But they live on. All of them will live on in generations of the hearts and souls of fans in Scotland. People of my age will all have very strong memories of them, and the younger generation are sort of tuning into this, maybe get a wee understanding of how important they were and why people thought it was worthwhile to raise money and put statues up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're on the road with the Legends series. I hope you're enjoying it as we go round some of the greats of Scottish football, not only playing the game but managing as well. I'll give you a wee bit of insight and stories, our experiences with them. Destination is Ibrox, first of all, for the greatest ever Ranger, and certainly the other statue is possibly one of the greatest ever managers in that dugout at Ibrox. So come along for the ride and the chat, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hugh, we're just outside Ibrox. We're just below the statue of John Greig, and this was erected to commemorate the 66 Rangers fans who lost their life after an Old Firm game here in 1971. And it is a fitting tribute. And of course, John Greig and the rest of the Rangers squad were absolutely devastated on that day. The game ended 1-1. We all know the tragic circumstances of the collapse of the stairway, and nobody should go to a game, Hugh, and lose their life. And it's fitting that it's the greatest ever Ranger, John Greig, that's there in commemoration of those people who sadly lost their lives.
Yeah, it's a magnificent statue, and it captures John Greig so brilliantly, his power, his strength, but it also stands as an almost eternal monument to Rangers fans that died. One of the fascinating things about this, and you look at it closely, also commemorates 2 other Ibrox disasters, the one in 61 where 2 fans were killed, and then the one in 1902 when 25 fans were killed. So their names are all on this statue, so the relatives can come along here in the case of one of the disasters more than 100 years later and see that the loved ones are not forgotten. And it is fitting that it's John Greig, the greatest ever Ranger, who stands proudly atop of this very, very poignant memorial, Peter.
Yeah, the other thing about it, which again, we are doing this tour trying to look at statues. I always look and say, is it a good statue? Is there a likeness? Is it something that really grasps the person? And I think John Greig's is a fantastic statue. But over and above that, it's also in commemoration of the man. Because although it's here as a fitting tribute, John Greig, the man who is thankfully still with us, as a player, Hugh, not a lot of people of a certain generation will know, like so many others, he could play in different positions.
Yeah, I mean, in history, he's got the stereotypical, tough tackling wing half, as we used to call him, for people nowadays, tough tackling midfielder. But he could also play inside forward, which demanded another skill set, perhaps a more creative and technically astute skill set, and he could do all that.
And as he got older, left back
as well, and he was. But what he was like that old cliche first name on the team sheet, because he dictated the way the game would be played. He's probably what the greatest highlight in his career would be winning the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1972, and he really played that game injured, and in typical Greig fashion, he made sure that he went into the first tackle, 100%, so that he convinced the opposition that he was up for it, and he convinced himself that he could stand the rigours of a game, and that was very typical John Greig. But I mean, an excellent. I mean, his career is just sprinkled with great moments, and people forget that he was a wonderful player for Scotland, Peter. I mean, he's on the pitch and when Scotland became world champions in 1967, beating England 3-2 at Wembley. And he was also the man who scored a wonderful goal in World Cup qualifying against Italy back in 1965. So he had many great moments in a dark blue shirt as well.
Yeah, the one thing that I think, we try and put into this series is the fact that try and put the human element, the personal element as well, your relationship with him. I found him not, I mean, listen, I remember as a kid, if you were thinking about the stereotypical person you wanted as a captain, then every Rangers fan would say it's a John Greig, understands the club, wants to fight for the jersey. Although he did grow up as a kid as a Hearts fan, when he came through here, he absolutely got the club. But the other good thing about John was he's a really funny man. His patter was fantastic, and I loved the bits of banter with him. He was great in the exchanges.
Very dry, very acerbic. You didn't know you'd been slaughtered till you're 10 yards away from him. You turn back. Wait a minute, did he say that there? Yeah. You could see how in a dressing room he would run the dressing room, but he could do it. They used to say about captains, you either do it by shouting and bawling and driving people on, or you do it by example. That they look to you as a great player. Greig ticked both those boxes.
My eternal image of him has to be the goatee beard with a Cup Winners' Cup, and not just at that time, just driving them on. A leader, looking at all the big games that he played in, domestically, getting success. At times when they were up against a formidable Celtic side, but that didn't bother him. He emphasised to maybe players who were wearing that jersey exactly what it meant to play for Rangers.
Absolutely, and as even years and years down the line now, we're talking about his glory years being in the 70s, and we're talking more than a half a century has passed, and you'll still see we need a John Greig type.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what we do need. We need some sunshine. I can't believe we're here and it's absolutely belting down. But listen, that's the nature of the Scottish weather, Hugh. We're going to go around places, we'll get sunshine, and then we'll get, absolutely pelting down here. But at Ibrox, I think it's nice that you highlighted the other people that are commemorated here at the statue. But it's a good likeness, and I think lots of people will come by here and they'll never forget John Greig.
And the thing I love about it, the legs. Here, John Greig flies.
Couldn't think of anything better. And within a stone's throw of not only Ibrox Stadium and the John Greig statue, we're heading over to what many would consider, one of the greatest Rangers managers. Certainly started out as an assistant to Graeme Souness, but then over a period of time, when Graeme decided to go to Liverpool, suddenly David Murray decided there was only one man that was the ideal choice to take his place and become the Rangers manager. Hugh and I are going to take a wee walk over to see the statue of the great Walter Smith. Hugh, I might as well tell you right now, I had nothing but the utmost respect for this man. I was lucky as the head of sport at Clyde at the end of a season to always be asked in for a cup of tea with him. We'd chat about football. He loved his football. He loved Rangers. He was a football man. And when he took over here, he managed to steady the ship, guide them onto the title when Graeme Souness had departed, and then from there on to 9 in a row. And I think his greatest achievement was coming back the second time and guiding Rangers to the title again, with a side that was nowhere near some of the great players that he had in his 9 in a row era. But this man here, personally, I know his family, great man, great boys, lovely wife, Walter Smith.
Genuine legend, isn't he? Not only just a legend of the Scottish game, before you go to Rangers, where he was hugely influential and successful, he had that career at Dundee United with Jim McLean. He also had his time with Scotland that interrupted his 2 spells at Rangers. So hugely influential as a coach, for example. And he's so good a coach that Jock Stein hired him to do that. And I think it was under 28 ones, but it was an underage team. But the great thing about Walter to me was his sharpness, his intelligence, and to me, a great decency. He was always, you could fall out with him and fall in with him. There was a general integrity and decency about him. He had certain ways that he worked and how he wanted to work. And across Peter, he had a great hinterland. He was a great reader. He loved his music. He was just terrific company and full of great stories on the history of the Scottish game.
Yeah, absolutely. He liked a good noise up as well, Hugh. He loved the fact that any of the dinners where I was absolutely battering players and managers, he would love that. And sometimes he'd send me a text after a show and he'd say, I heard you were in blistering form tonight, Peter. And with that in mind, you could have those little moments of exchanging a text with him. I enjoyed personally going into some of the press conferences with him because if you asked him something that was just out of left field that he didn't like, you get the cold stare, Hugh.
The Walter stare, the famous Walter stare. It was like a Dalek, exterminated. I loved one time on Peter because when he retired, he always said to me, if you ever want to talk about something in particular, we could talk about. I'm not just going to go an interview and my career's arrangement. And a couple of times I went to him and I did an interview with one of them, how'd you handle greatness? And he was just terrific on how he managed Gascoigne, how he had to give Gascoigne more free rein than he would give other players, how he managed another genius in Loudrup, who was much easier in many ways, much lower maintenance. I once interviewed him on how to be an old firm manager, and he started off with I don't know how I could clean this up, but he started off with the elevation that being a manager of Rangers on Old Firm was a 2-toilet morning because it got more than the juices go. But he also talked about how Rangers had been put into his blood, really. And people presume it was by his father. His father was really a Cambuslang Rangers supporter, would you believe? It was his grandfather who came to live with him after his grandfather lost his wife. Literally would put Walter on his knee and talk about great Rangers players of the past. And that's where his adherence to Rangers was really solidified.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you mentioned there because I think it was a great story of Billy Connolly meeting him and he says, how are you handling Gascoigne? And he says, oh, he's a handful on the park, genius, off the park. He has his moments. And Billy said, well, remember, you have to accommodate genius because genius will not accommodate you. Yeah. And that summed it up perfectly because he had to manage certain people one way, probably just had to say to Brian Laudrup, get the strip on, and weave your magic. But over the piece, even when you get to a situation where he had a very workmanlike Rangers side getting to the UEFA Cup final, he was realistic enough to know that if they were going to try and beat Zenit St. Petersburg, my God, they would have to do something special. He knew it was maybe a bridge too far.
Absolutely, I mean, that was a year of what we called Watanaccio, where the defensive was so strong. I mean, that fantastic night in Florence when they beat Fiorentina in a shootout to get through the final. They beat some really good teams that year. I mean, in the Champions League, which they were in, it was when you dropped out of the group stages, you could go down into UEFA Cup. They beat a very, very good Lyon side, 3-0 at Stade Garland. So they were capable of goals and they were capable of strength, good players in the team. But yes, not at the level of that great Zenit St. Petersburg. But I think Walter knew that. I think Walter's big frustration that year was the fixture pile-up and how it impacted on the domestic campaign and the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, listen, his legacy is here for all to see. It's a good statue as well. Do you like it?
Great statue. I like it because it shows him. You just imagine him just walking over the stands and taking the acclaim. He wasn't a man really that was. He was a man that was prone to do that. So it's nice to see one of those poses that gives him his day in the sun amid the teeming rain in the south side of Glasgow.
Yeah, I think his sons Neil and Stephen would be very proud of that statue there, because he was, after all, very proud of the fact that he was a granda as well.
Very proud of his family, very much a family man. Much missed, Peter.
Yeah, very much missed. We're on the road and we've literally within the stone's throw of John Greig is the great Walter Smith. I hope you enjoyed the wee bit of chat here. We're on the road again. We're going to actually come across another great Ranger shortly, and a few other players that have played with distinction for the other half of Glasgow. It's Hugh MacDonald and Peter Martin, from John Greig to Walter Smith. Let's get back in the car, and I tell you right now, if Walter was within a stone's throw of us right now, he'd say, listen, you two, get in here for a cup of tea and get out of here before anybody sees you.